As I pulled into the driveway, the first thing I noticed was all my stuff packed outside. Suitcases, boxes, and bags were stacked haphazardly, as if thrown out in a fit of rage. My heart sank as I realized the gravity of the situation. I had been caught. The sun was setting, casting a golden hue over the chaos. It would have been a beautiful evening under different circumstances. My son, Ethan, was standing by the front door, tears streaming down his face. He was clutching his phone tightly, his eyes glued to the screen. Ethan, only 12, looked so much older in that moment, burdened by the weight of betrayal. As I approached him, I saw the video playing on his phone. It was a recording of me with his principal, Mr. Andrews, in the act, doing certain things in her office room. The grainy footage captured the clandestine moments in stark detail. The video had been making rounds at his school, and he had received it from a classmate. My stomach churned at the thought of Ethan's friends watching the most private moments of my life. Ethan, I started, but he cut me off, his voice trembling with a mix of anger and sorrow. "Mom, how could you?" he cried. "How could you do this to us?" His eyes, usually filled with youthful innocence, now reflected a depth of pain I had never seen before. I reached out to touch his shoulder, but he recoiled as if my touch burned. The distance between us felt insurmountable. "I never meant to hurt you, Ethan. I made a terrible mistake," I whispered, my voice breaking. He handed me a stack of papers, divorce papers. "Dad's getting full custody. I'm staying with him. You need to leave." His words were like a punch to the gut, each one knocking the wind out of me. I took the papers with trembling hands, scanning the bold, unforgiving text. Each line felt like a nail in the coffin of our family. "Ethan, please, let's talk about this," I pleaded, tears welling up in my eyes. "There's nothing to talk about," he said coldly. "Dad explained everything. He told me how you've been lying to us, sneaking around. I can't believe you, Mom. I can't even look at you." His voice cracked on the last word, and he turned away, staring at the ground as if hoping it would swallow him whole. The front door creaked open, and there stood Stephen, my husband, with a look of grim satisfaction. "I told you there would be consequences," he said, his voice devoid of any emotion. "You've made your bed, now lie in it." I glanced back at Ethan, hoping for a glimmer of forgiveness, but his eyes were fixed on the ground, his face a mask of pain and anger. My daughter in the sleep, without knowing anything. My world had crumbled, and the pieces lay scattered around me, impossible to put back together. Then John left the house with kids. I walked into our bedroom, my legs feeling like they were made of lead. Each step felt heavier than the last, weighed down by the crushing reality of the situation. The room, usually a haven of comfort and familiarity, now felt foreign and hostile. The soft light filtering through the blinds seemed to highlight the emptiness and betrayal that hung in the air. On the bed was a neatly arranged pile of documents and photographs, each item meticulously placed as if to emphasize the meticulous nature of my husband's revenge. The contrast between the serene setting and the devastating contents struck me like a punch to the gut. I could barely bring myself to look closer. As I approached the bed, my gaze fell upon the photographs. There were images of me in intimate moments with Mr. Andrews, taken in various locations, our bedroom, his office, and even a weekend getaway. Each photo was a stark reminder of my betrayal, a visual representation of the secrets I thought were hidden. My heart raced as I recognized the hotel room where the affair had begun. The photos seemed to mock me with their clarity, capturing every detail of my indiscretions. Next to the pile of pictures was a stack of documents. I reached out with trembling hands, my fingers brushing against the cold, impersonal paper. The divorce papers were there, but they were accompanied by a detailed breakdown of our finances and a list of assets Stephen had meticulously compiled. It was as if he wanted to ensure I had no foothold left, no place to hide from the consequences of my actions. I collapsed onto the bed, my knees hitting the soft surface as I tried to steady my breathing. My chest heaved with sobs, the weight of guilt and regret pressing down on me. The room, once a sanctuary, now felt like a prison. The walls seemed to close in, and the familiar surroundings became a haunting reminder of what I had lost. On the nightstand, Beside the pile of documents was a note from Stephen. My hands shook as I picked it up, my eyes scanning the harsh words written in his precise handwriting. I hope it was worth it. You've destroyed our family. The kids will never forgive you, and neither will I. Goodbye. The finality of his words hit me with a wave of despair. The note was not just a message but a reflection of his pain, his anger, and his sense of betrayal. Each sentence felt like a personal indictment, an accusation of my failure as a wife and a mother. I sat there in silence, the weight of the note pressing heavily on my chest. The room was filled with an eerie quiet, broken only by the occasional rustle of paper as I tried to grasp the reality of what was happening. My mind raced with memories of better times, moments of happiness that now seemed like a cruel joke. I had sacrificed everything for a fleeting moment of pleasure, and now I was paying the price. The room, with its familiar furnishings and cherished memories, had become a symbol of my downfall. As I sat there, surrounded by the evidence of my betrayal, I knew that rebuilding my life would be an immense challenge. The road ahead was uncertain, and the consequences of my actions seemed insurmountable. But in that moment of solitude and regret, I understood the true cost of my choices. News of my affair had spread like wildfire. The video of me and Mr. Andrews, once a hidden secret, was now a public spectacle. It began with a single post on a local gossip blog and quickly escalated, making its way through social media like a raging inferno. Within hours, the video had spread across Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, turning my private life into a global headline. The video, though grainy and shaky, captured every excruciating detail. It was a raw and unfiltered snapshot of my betrayal, complete with whispered exchanges and heated moments. Each view, each share, felt like another stab to my already wounded heart. The video's spread was relentless. Every click, every view seemed to mock my desperation and regret. Local news stations picked up the story, adding their own sensational twists. Headlines blared across television screens and news websites, cheating wife caught in the act, principal's affair exposed, and scandal rocks the community. My face, once private and personal, was now splashed across news segments and digital billboards. The constant barrage of media coverage felt like a relentless assault, making it impossible to escape the public scrutiny. Friends who had once been close suddenly became distant. Text messages went unanswered, and phone calls were ignored. The same people who had celebrated my achievements now avoided me as if I were a plague. It was as though my betrayal had somehow tainted everyone around me. Conversations at work and in social circles shifted uncomfortably whenever I walked into a room. Whispers followed me wherever I went, their tones dripping with judgment and disdain. My neighbors, who once greeted me with friendly waves, now averted their eyes when I passed. The atmosphere in our once friendly community had turned cold and hostile. Even the local coffee shop, where I had spent countless hours chatting with acquaintances, now felt like a hostile environment. I could sense the undercurrent of gossip and judgment every time I walked through the door. Social media was no refuge. My accounts were flooded with comments. Some were cruel and mocking, while others were laced with anger and disappointment. Strangers posted messages about how I had betrayed not only my family but also their trust in me. The barrage of negative feedback was overwhelming. I tried to respond, to explain my side, but each attempt was met with further scorn. I couldn't escape the constant reminders of my failure. Even mundane activities, like going to the grocery store, became excruciating. I could feel the stares of strangers as they recognized me from the news. The whispers grew louder as I passed by, and I could catch snippets of their conversations about me. In my solitude, I found it impossible to ignore the damage that had been done. My reputation, once built on years of hard work and dedication, was now in tatters. The scandal had stripped away any semblance of normalcy, leaving me exposed and vulnerable. The media frenzy had created a whirlwind of chaos, leaving no room for privacy or redemption. The public spectacle of my affair was a relentless reminder of my mistakes. The damage was done, and there was no way to undo the irreversible consequences of my actions. Mr. Andrews fled to Canada with his family. In our no-fault state, infidelity usually wouldn't have a significant impact on the divorce settlement or custody arrangements. The legal system was designed to be impartial, focusing on equitable distribution rather than moral judgments. However, the viral nature of my affair had created a storm of public opinion that inevitably seeped into the courtroom. The scandal had become more than just a personal crisis. It had become a media spectacle that seemed to influence even the most objective legal proceedings. Stephen's determination to secure full custody of our children, 12-year-old Ethan and 6-year-old Lily, was relentless. The public nature of the scandal painted me as a pariah in the eyes of the judge, despite the legal guidelines that were supposed to prioritize the best interests of the children over personal grievances. The courtroom, usually a place of solemnity and legal formality, had turned into an arena where public opinion seemed to overshadow legal fairness. The day of the custody hearing, the courthouse was crowded with reporters and photographers eager to capture the latest developments. I felt like a deer caught in headlights as I walked through the throng of cameras, my every move scrutinized. The judge's expression remained impassive, but it was clear that the atmosphere in the room was charged with a judgment that went beyond the legal facts. Ethan and Lily were brought into the courtroom to give their testimonies. Ethan, once a cheerful and outgoing boy, had transformed into a sullen, withdrawn teenager. His eyes, which used to sparkle with curiosity, now carried a heavy burden of anger and betrayal. He spoke in a monotone voice, recounting how his friends at school had taunted him and how he felt isolated and abandoned. His words pierced through me like daggers, each sentence a painful reminder of the fallout from my actions. Lily, though only 6, had picked up on the tension at home. She didn't fully grasp the complexities of the situation, but was acutely aware of the emotional distance between us. Her once bright and playful demeanor had been replaced by confusion and fear. She clung to her father during the proceedings, her small frame trembling as she looked around the courtroom with wide, fearful eyes. Seeing her so distressed was almost more than I could bear. Stephen presented his case with calculated precision. He emphasized how the scandal had shattered our family's stability and how the kids would benefit from the consistency and support he could provide. His arguments were bolstered by the media's portrayal of me as an unfit mother. Despite my attempts to explain my remorse and my desire to repair our fractured family, my pleas seemed to fall on deaf ears. The judge's decision, when it came, felt like a crushing blow. Stephen was awarded full custody, a verdict that seemed to reflect not just the legal principles, but also the public sentiment. The judgment was a stark reminder of how deeply my actions had affected my family and how difficult it would be to mend the relationships I had so carelessly shattered. In the weeks following the ruling, my attempts to reach out to Ethan and Lily were met with cold silence. Their anger and hurt were palpable, and no amount of apologies or explanations could bridge the chasm that had opened between us. The pain of being alienated from my children was a constant ache, a relentless reminder of the consequences of my betrayal. The custody battle, influenced by public opinion and media frenzy, had resulted in a devastating loss. My family was now divided, and the road to reconciliation seemed as distant as ever. The legal decision had been made, but the emotional scars left behind were far more difficult to heal. With nowhere else to go, I moved into a small, dingy apartment on the outskirts of town. The building was an aging relic of better times, its paint peeling and the hallways dimly lit. The apartment itself was a stark contrast to the home I had once shared with my family. The floors creaked with every step, and the thin walls offered little insulation from the noise of the neighbors, who seemed to be engaged in a never-ending cycle of arguments and loud music. The constant hum of the building's heating system was a harsh reminder of my new, solitary existence. Each day in the apartment felt like a relentless echo of my mistakes. The cramped space was filled with the remnants of my former life, photos and mementos that now served only to remind me of what I had lost. I had made little effort to decorate or personalize the space, as if acknowledging the apartment was akin to accepting my own failure. The small kitchen, with its outdated appliances and flickering fluorescent light, seemed to mock me with its stark simplicity. The few possessions I had brought with me were crammed into uneven piles, a visual representation of the disarray in my life. The apartment, with its dim lighting and sparse furnishings, felt like a prison of my own making. The constant noise from the neighboring units, the echoing footsteps, and the muffled conversations only added to the feeling of isolation. In stark contrast, Stephen seemed to thrive in my absence. He had taken full control of the family's well-being, channeling his energy into caring for Ethan and Lily. From the outside, it appeared as if he had seamlessly transitioned into the role of a single parent, providing a stable and nurturing environment for the children. His dedication was evident in the way he involved himself in their daily lives, attending school events, helping with homework, and ensuring that their emotional needs were met. Stephen's resilience and focus on the children had earned him respect from those around him. Despite the scandal that had initially threatened his career, he managed to keep his job and even received commendations for his professionalism and strength during a trying period. His ability to maintain a facade of normalcy and professionalism amidst the chaos was both impressive and heartbreaking. The public perception of him as the wronged yet noble father seemed to further highlight the contrast between his newfound strength and my own crumbling existence. The kids, though still grappling with their emotions, appeared to be adjusting to their new routine. Stephen's efforts to shield them from the worst of the media frenzy and to provide a sense of stability had paid off, at least on the surface. Ethan was slowly coming out of his shell, though his anger towards me remained palpable. Lily, too young to fully comprehend the intricacies of the situation, was adjusting to life without me, her confusion tempered by the comforting presence of her father. As I looked out from the small, grimy window of my apartment, I couldn't help but reflect on the profound impact of my actions. The life I had once known was now a distant memory, replaced by a harsh reality that I had created through my own decisions. The daily struggles of living in such a stark environment served as a constant reminder of the irreversible damage I had caused, both to my family and to myself. Each day was a sobering reminder of the cost of my betrayal and the enduring consequences of my actions. I thought often about my family, particularly my children. I had taken them for granted, treating their love and presence as constants that would always be there. In hindsight, I could see how my actions had eroded the foundation of our family. I had allowed a fleeting affair, a momentary escape from the drudgery of daily life, to spiral into a catastrophic event with lasting consequences. What had seemed like a harmless distraction had turned into a devastating betrayal, one that had irrevocably altered our lives. Each day was filled with a yearning to reconnect with Ethan and Lily. I missed their laughter, their warmth, and the simple joy of being a part of their lives. The memories of our time together haunted me, each one a painful reminder of what I had lost. I longed to hold them again, to tell them how much I loved them and how deeply I regretted my actions. I imagined the comforting embrace of their little arms around me, and it only made the separation feel more unbearable. But the reality was that earning their forgiveness would be a monumental task. The damage I had inflicted was not something that could be repaired with a simple apology or grand gesture. The emotional wounds I had caused were deep and complex, and rebuilding trust would be a long and arduous process, if it was even possible at all. I understood that my betrayal had shattered their sense of security and trust, leaving scars that would take years to heal, if not a lifetime. The thought of their anger and hurt was a constant ache in my heart. Ethan's withdrawn demeanor and Lily's confusion were reminders of the pain I had caused. I could only imagine how difficult it was for them to process their emotions and adjust to a new life without me. The guilt I felt was overwhelming, knowing that my actions had led to their distress. Months had passed since the tumultuous events that had overturned my life, and I found myself grappling with the slow process of rebuilding. The apartment's dim lighting, though still a stark reminder of my past mistakes, had become a backdrop for my new beginning. I had learned to accept the silence, using it as a space for introspection and growth. Determined to make amends, I sought therapy to confront the root causes of my infidelity. The sessions were both painful and enlightening. I had to face uncomfortable truths about myself, the dissatisfaction I had felt, the misguided choices I had made, and the deep-seated issues that had led me astray. Therapy became a crucial part of my journey, offering me tools to cope with the overwhelming guilt and shame that had plagued me. It was a slow process, but I began to understand the importance of forgiveness, both of myself and from others. Financially, I had managed to find a modest job. It wasn't glamorous, working as a receptionist at a small, local firm, but it provided me with a sense of purpose and stability. The work was mundane, but it was a vital step toward regaining my independence. Each day I faced new challenges and opportunities to prove myself, not just to my employers, but to myself as well. The job didn't erase my past, but it helped me carve out a new, albeit humble, chapter in my life. Amid this journey of self-reconstruction, one unexpected event brought a flicker of hope into my otherwise bleak existence. One afternoon, as I was sifting through a stack of mail, I found a letter from Ethan. My hands trembled as I opened it, uncertain of what to expect. The letter was brief, scrawled in his teenage handwriting, but its contents were a mixture of raw emotion and tentative hope. Ethan's words were filled with anger and pain. He wrote about the depth of his betrayal, the hurt that had cut through the core of his young life. Reading his feelings laid bare was a bitter reminder of the impact of my actions. Yet, alongside his anger, there were glimpses of vulnerability. He mentioned how much he missed the good times we had shared, the moments of laughter, the family traditions, and the comfort of our past life. His words conveyed a longing for reconciliation, a signal that despite the pain, there was still a part of him that remembered and cherished the family we had been. The letter was a small but significant gesture, a tentative bridge toward healing. It wasn't an offer of forgiveness, nor was it a resolution of the rift that had formed between us. But it was a start, a sign that Ethan was beginning to process his emotions and, perhaps, was open to the possibility of rebuilding our relationship in the future. For the first time in a long while, I felt a glimmer of hope. The path to redemption seemed less daunting, illuminated by the faint promise of reconciliation. It was clear that the road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but Ethan's letter was a reminder that healing was possible. The journey of rebuilding my life, though still in its early stages, now carried the hope of mending the broken bonds of family. In the quiet solitude of my apartment, the letter offered a semblance of solace. It wasn't a cure-all, nor did it erase the scars of the past, but it was a step toward understanding, a flicker of light in the darkness, and a reminder that even in the aftermath of profound mistakes, there was still a chance for healing and redemption. Rebuilding my relationship with my children felt like an insurmountable challenge, yet it became my singular focus. The enormity of the task weighed heavily on me, but the desire to make things right for Ethan and Lily drove me forward. I knew that regaining their trust would be a monumental effort, requiring unwavering patience, sincere remorse, and a commitment to proving that I was capable of change. The first step in my journey toward redemption was to reach out to them in writing. I spent hours crafting heartfelt letters, each one carefully composed to convey my deepest apologies and my enduring love. I wanted them to understand the depth of my regret and the reasons behind my actions, though I knew that words alone could not undo the hurt I had caused. I wrote about the mistakes I had made, the lessons I had learned, and my unwavering hope for a future where we could rebuild our relationship. Each letter was a small piece of my heart, a testament to my desire to reconnect. Alongside the letters, I began sending small, thoughtful gifts to Ethan and Lily. I chose items that I thought would bring them comfort and joy, Ethan's favorite books and some toys for Lily, along with handwritten notes. I wanted these gestures to show them that, despite the distance between us, I was still thinking of them and wanted to be a part of their lives. I included personal touches, like photos of our happier times together, hoping that these would serve as reminders of the love we once shared. In addition to these efforts, I made a conscious decision to stay involved in their lives from afar. I reached out to Stephen, asking if I could attend important events such as school performances and sports games. I understood that my presence might be uncomfortable for them, but I wanted to show that I was willing to make an effort, even if it meant enduring awkward and painful moments. I respected their boundaries, accepting that I might need to remain on the periphery while they worked through their feelings. The road to redemption was not smooth or straightforward. There were days when I felt disheartened, especially when my attempts at communication went unanswered or were met with anger. I had to come to terms with the fact that healing would be a gradual process and that setbacks were a natural part of this journey. But even in these moments of frustration, I reminded myself of the importance of perseverance. Each letter I wrote, each gift I sent, was a step towards rebuilding what had been broken. Through it all, I kept reminding myself of why I was doing this. My children deserved a mother who was present and committed to their well-being, even if it took time for them to believe in my sincerity. I knew that regaining their trust would be a long and arduous process, but I was determined to show them that I was genuinely sorry and committed to making things right. Every small gesture, every letter sent, and every attempt to stay involved was a building block in the foundation of our future relationship. I hoped that, in time, these efforts would help bridge the chasm created by my mistakes and that Ethan and Lily would see the depth of my remorse and my dedication to being a better mother. The road to redemption was long and uncertain, but it was a journey I was willing to undertake, for the sake of my children and the hope of a future where we could heal together. Years had passed since the turmoil of my past, and while the scars of my actions had not completely faded, they had softened over time. Ethan and Lily were now young adults, and though the shadow of those painful events still lingered, they had found ways to forgive and rebuild their lives. Our relationship, though irrevocably altered, had grown into something resilient and nuanced. Ethan, now 20, had matured into a thoughtful and driven young man. He pursued a career in environmental science, driven by a passion for making a positive impact on the world. The anger and betrayal that once clouded his judgment had given way to a more measured perspective. Our interactions, though often formal, were marked by a newfound respect and understanding. He had learned to compartmentalize the past, focusing on building a future that he could be proud of. Lily, at 16, had blossomed into a compassionate and artistic young woman. She had a keen interest in graphic design and used her creativity to express herself. Her journey to forgiveness had been more gradual, shaped by the support of her friends and a therapeutic environment. Our bond was still fragile, but it was tempered with mutual care. She was learning to see me not just as the mother who had made mistakes, but as a person who had genuinely worked to make amends. Stephen, too, had found his own path to healing. He had remarried a few years earlier to a kind and understanding woman named Kate. Watching him build a new life with someone else had been a bitter pill to swallow, but over time, I had come to accept and even appreciate his happiness. Kate brought a sense of calm and stability to his life, and she embraced the role of a stepmother with grace and empathy. We had learned to co-parent effectively, setting aside our differences to focus on the well-being of Ethan and Lily. Our interactions were marked by a respectful distance, bound by the shared goal of ensuring our children's happiness and stability. The journey of forgiveness had been both arduous and enlightening. I had spent years reflecting on the nature of love, fidelity, and the complex dynamics of family. My affair had cost me dearly, stripping away the illusions I once held about my own self-worth and the nature of relationships. I had learned that true love is not just about passion but about commitment, honesty, and respect. The process of seeking and granting forgiveness had revealed to me the profound strength of human resilience and the capacity for change. Though the path to healing had been fraught with pain and setbacks, it had ultimately led me to a place of acceptance and hope. I had come to understand that while the past could not be undone, it could be a teacher, guiding us towards growth and wisdom. The lessons learned from my mistakes had shaped me into a more introspective and empathetic person. In the end, my story was one of deep regret and hard-earned redemption. It was a testament to the enduring power of forgiveness and the possibility of moving forward, even after the most grievous of errors. As I looked back on the journey, I saw not just the pain but also the potential for healing and renewal, a reminder that even in the aftermath of profound mistakes, there could be a path to a brighter, more hopeful future.